Hello, OAS family. We're here today with another book review, and today we will be reviewing To Paint in the Ling-nan Style 2, Insects, Fish, and Birds by Lu Cheng-yuan. So before we get into the book, the general statistics, the book is 8¼ inches wide by 11¾ inches high. And it approximately has 125 pages of content. So we're going to get right into the book here. So there's a little forward at the beginning where we talk a little bit about the featured artist Lu Cheng-yuan, and we talk about some details about how he feels about this grouping of subjects. So we're going to get right into the book and study the format. So this is a very popular format where they show an element broken down in a more detailed way. So here we see the bee kind of rendered in an illustrative fashion, building from a simpler grouping to a more complex grouping. And then what they'll do is they will show that featured element in a final composition, and the final composition will also include other elements. So we can see here this painting, Fragile Beauty, which includes the bees that were described before, and alongside this rose. So that is basically the format of the whole book. And then here's some instruction in English and in Chinese about how things were rendered. All right, so then we have this Be at Rest, which is the same subject in a different position. So that, and then showing it here with this peony painting. All right. Now we get into wasps. So you can see this Ling-nan style has this very loose way of rendering insects. And you can really see the origin of the painting being calligraphy strokes. Can you see? It almost looks like writing there. And then the final composition. Nice. All right, so here's the beetle. Butterfly. And then the final composition here, which has both a bee and a butterfly. And this blossom and branch feature. All right, so here's black and white butterflies. And then the final composition. Dragonflies. I love this sort of textured grass that the dragonfly is featured with. It's a really amazing painting. All right, this is sort of a looser style of dragonfly. So before we could see here that this style included some outlines, a little bit more detailed. And then this is what they're referring to the book as in the book as freehand styles or looser style. Okay, and then the final subject with a lotus there. Praying mantis. Okay, different sort of brown mantis. And then a final composition featuring that subject. The grasshopper. And another version here. wonderful colors, this painting. Snail. And the snail with the bamboo here. Very nice, a little just touch of color. All right, cicada. And then the flying cicada. Okay, so that's the end of the section on insects. Then we get into fishes. So about a third of the book is on insects. So notice that we get a pretty interesting shift in style. So most of the insect work was quite loose. And we see here in the beginning of the fish section that we sort of maintain a little bit of that sense where the renderings of the subject is a little bit loose. So these are these small stream fishes in this overhead view. Okay. And here in this final composition. But then when we get into different subjects of fishes, we see that the style gets more meticulous. So we can see here how it's difficult to sort of peg Ling-nan style as being either one thing or the other, because this is the same artist painting in this style, but you can see he approaches different subjects in very different ways. Okay, so this goldfish rendering is much more detailed. Here we see these calico patterns. Then more final compositions featuring goldfish. These sort of wilted, large lotus leaves. Angelfish. So then you can see here the artist continues in this more detailed rendering style. The angelfish. Say building those groupings. You see the distinctive vertical stripes on these angelfish. Having worked for a while in the ornamental fish industry, I say that these paintings do a really great job in capturing the spirit of these animals. I definitely have seen and taken care of a lot of them in my time working in the ornamental fish industry, and I really get a sense of the animal here, an accurate sense of them through these paintings. So these are carp, koi, interesting fact, one of the ways that you can tell the difference between carp and goldfish is if you look closely here, you can see that the carp actually has whiskers. See that? Or the koi has those little distinctive things around the mouth, those whiskers. All right, so now we get into actual carp. Okay, then we get into a very revered fish in the ornamental fish industry called the dragonfish, or otherwise called the arowana. Interesting note that these fish are so sought after that there's a certain variety of them. I believe it's this sort of red variety here, that every single one of them that is sold is required to be implanted with a chip so that it can be tracked, so that there's no illegal importation of the fish, exportation of the fish. So now we get into these saltwater butterfly fish. So all the fish up to this point were freshwater fish. Now we're getting into our first ocean fish. So you can see the change in the colors in the ocean fish, a bit more bright. These fish are found along the reefs in Asia. So that's the end of the fish section, and we're getting into the section on birds now. So then we can see in this section on birds, on the songbirds, the smaller birds, you can see we have this more loose calligraphic rendering here. You can see there. And this is the back view of the bird, and downward in flight. All right, this is standing. Front view and final composition there. This is a sparrow. Then here's a kingfisher. This bird has tremendous personality for a small bird. Look at that. That's the actual picture of a bird, and then here's the rendering. And then in the final composition, in flight, and then seeing these fish, seeing these birds actually catch fish is amazing. So you can see there it has a little fish in its mouth. And then in the final composition, right, this is the grackle. Another colorful, smallish bird here. In the final composition. Side view. In the final composition. Swallow. Final compositions featuring swallows. Paradise flycatcher. This bird has these distinctively long tail feathers. Featured here in final compositions. First a bamboo on the left and then some fruit. Myna birds. How loose that is. Almost looks like a mountain at first. Then they add the detail and then you definitely get a sense of the bird. And they use the looseness and the texture to capture that sort of the feathering of the birds. This is the Hainan Liaoko. The magpie. Different posture for the magpie here. Parrot. Chicken. Small chicks here, young chickens, chicklings, referred to in the book. Rooster and hen. Mandarin ducks. Then the egret. So here on this bird, the larger bird, you can see that the rendering is much more detailed. The style shifts again to a more detailed style. Crane, same thing with the crane. The illustrative instruction, building the crane from simpler to more complex. And the eagle. And finally, the peacock. So that's it. Thank you for listening to this book review. Again, that was To Paint in the Ling-nan Style 2, Insects, Fish, and Birds. And go ahead and like and subscribe for more content like this. And thank you for listening, and happy painting.